Welcome to Biz Dev Live. My name is Cameron Toth. I'm so excited to bring you Rachel West today. We're going to get into really decluttering some of that negative mind clutter that you got going on there. We're going to get into some of the programming details of making you a more empowered person overall. We'll talk about Rachel's book, The Successful Woman's Mindset. Co-author. She is awesome. I'm so excited to bring you to her. We're going to get into all of that and more right after the Biz Dev theme.
Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time, live. Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration, Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Business development, not even selling it. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is business development, not even selling it. Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Biz Dev Live. This is business development, not even selling it.
So we're going to get into it right away. I'm going to introduce our speaker of the day, Rachel. Thanks for being here with me. So Rachel West is a personal growth coach, certified trainer, breakthrough expert, speaker, best-selling author, and the founder of Empowering Growth. She is a certified master Neuro-Linguistic programming and master timeline therapy practitioner. She volunteers at Safe House in Las Vegas and is a certified domestic violence victims advocate. Rachel is passionate about helping individuals ready to transform themselves, to transform their life by helping identify what holds them back in the areas of life they struggle with the most. She helps broaden their perspectives and understands firsthand how releasing negative mental, emotional, and behavioral programming helps one feel, hear, and see new possibilities, and focusing this new mindset and tool set to get results at a much higher level. Thank you so much for being on the show with me, Rachel. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Excellent. So tell everybody exactly what it is you do as a coach, how you help people, and then I'd love to get into the background story here.
Okay. So I help people discover the root cause as to what's holding them back and preventing them from moving forward in those areas of their life that they're struggling with the most.
I love that. All right. And so what did little Rachel want to be when she was growing up? How did you get passionate about helping people this way?
You know what I realized when I really thought about it? When I was little, I wanted to be a teacher. And fast forward to now, a coach is kind of like a teacher. So as a kid, you don't really know what a coach is. You probably haven't really heard of it or knew exactly what the job was of a coach. However, you do know what a teacher is. So to me, I think that dream came true, and I'm teaching other people all about their mindset and how important it is.
I love that. And so as you were kind of taking your journey towards what you're doing now, what were some of the steps that you took? I mean, I know when we spoke one-on-one, you were talking about, getting exposed to certain things, having certain experiences that sort of led you to this track of neuro-linguistic programming specifically, but to this teaching, to this helping of other people. What kind of shaped you and made you feel like this is definitely the way that I want to do it?
Yeah. So going through life, I wasn't really aware of what was happening in the moment. And then once I started my personal growth journey, I invested in myself, did training, and started my NLP journey. And I started to look back at everything that I had gone through, every experience I have had, and started to see how those experiences shaped me and created a belief within myself that held me back. So in kindergarten, I was diagnosed with a learning disability. A doctor told me this. I took that label, put it on my back, and I accepted that. And so hearing that from the doctor made me create a belief or think within myself that, oh, I have this learning disability. So that means that I'm not as smart as everyone else. And that belief then trickled into a lot of areas of my life. It made like a domino effect. It then trickled into reading. Well, when I would be in grade school and I would read silently, I would struggle to comprehend what I was reading. I would need to go home, read it out loud so I could hear what I was saying and process and retain that information. And I thought that that I had to do that because I had this learning disability and because I wasn't as smart as everyone else. And I thought I was the only one who read this way. And so then that I decided, well, I'm just not going to read because I don't want to be even more different than everyone else. So I'm just not going to read. Well, then that trickles into writing. Well, how could I be a good writer if I don't read and I have this learning disability and I'm not as smart as everyone else? So for 27 years, this was my belief. I struggled with writing, coming up with the words to say. And then I come across NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And if you're not familiar with that is, it's the science of how your brain processes information through your five senses, the science of how you communicate with yourself and others, and the science of your internal programming. So those are your beliefs, your behaviors, your attitudes, your habits, your perceptions in life. So I learn about NLP, I start studying it, and I discover that I never had this learning disability. And that it was the way that I learn, the way I process information, the way I communicate, that things weren't being told to me in a way that I understood. So I just felt lost. And so once I realized this, I took off that label, threw it in the trash, like, nope, that's no longer true. I don't have this. So once I did that, that domino effect happened again. And I realized I love to read. I just listen to an audio or I read out loud. And I found that other people do that too. It's all in how we learn and how it what's right for you. And then funnels into writing. Well, now I love to write. I created my first book. It's a collaborative book. I was like, let me see if I can write a chapter. I've never written anything, always struggled with writing. Let me see if I can write a chapter, see how that works out. And it was easy for me. And all I did was share my story and my journey and how these different events in my life created these beliefs. And how once you identify what those beliefs are, you become aware of them and you release it because that belief's no longer true, the possibilities that open up for you.
I love that. I'm typing into the comments here to ask folks that are watching, what are your negative beliefs, right? And you just to sort of get that kind of input, because I think we all grow up with these. I mean, even if it's something as simple as I remember this story with my grandmother that I was noisy as a child, that I was noisy, and so you get these, so you're noisy, right? And
Right.
what does that do to how you speak up and how you think about coming into a room and letting yourself be heard, right? It's a very interesting thing. I know we were talking about things with family and addictions and that sort of thing as part of your journey as well. You want to just kind of briefly get into that and how that plays into how you got into this neuro-linguistic programming track?
Yep. So how I got into NLP, I owned a graphic design business for 4 years. I stumbled into it. I had no idea what it was. I had never heard of it before. I had a business partner. She told me there was this NLP boot camp coming to town and that we should learn it for our business. So I trusted her. I went to this boot camp. It was 6 hours long, and discovered like, wow, this will help us in our business. I wanted to do it for the communication side, learn how people communicate, how they process information, how they learn, so I could then write marketing messages to reach them and speak to them on a deeper level. So that's the reason why I got into it. I start going through the program, decide that I'm going to go all the way through, get my master's practitioner certification, my trainer certification. Through that, I discover I no longer want to have this design agency, and I want to open a coaching business and focus on mental health and addiction. So growing up, a lot of my family members struggled with addiction. So I witnessed a lot of substance abuse with alcohol and drugs, even some gambling and self-harm. And so as I'm going through this NLP journey, going into it thinking it's for the communication and for my design business, I'm realizing as I'm learning these new tools and these new modalities that I can really be using these tools to help struggling individuals through these moments in life where they're just stuck and they don't know how to break through it. So growing up, having all these people around me in various substances and addictions, it's hard as a family member, especially as a young kid. And through that, I always had this ability to see the good in them. I would hold them almost like on a pedestal and think, if you would just let go of this, you would become this. And so no matter what they did, and sometimes they were very destructive within themselves, other people, committing crimes, all of those things, I still saw them outside, the good in them. And one in particular, my brother-in-law, he
No, I was just just motioning along. I wasn't making a comment. Just
okay.
giving
Cool.
you the affirmative. Yeah.
All right, perfect. So my brother-in-law, he was addicted to drugs. So he would abuse my sister, steal auto theft, steal cars, break into convenience stores, all these horrible things, to the point where like all of my family like pretty much dismissed him and my sister. Like, if this is what you're gonna do, we don't want to be a part of it. And my breaking point came, very close to like being with them and walking away. It was Easter, and I went over to my sister's house to see my niece and nephew and see what they got for Easter. And I'm sitting there talking to her, and I noticed that she has this black eye. It's like a pale blue. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is not cool. This is the first time I had experience seeing this outcome. So I was like, man, maybe I should jump on the bandwagon with my family and walk away from this, because I can't be a part of this and witness this and come over here and be around him and be okay with that. And I don't want him to think that I'm okay with that, because it's not okay. And as I'm thinking this, I stop myself and I say to myself, no, I'm not going to be like everybody else. I'm not going to walk away from this situation. And because if I do that, now she has no one. Now she's completely by herself in this environment with two little kids. And if something majorly more serious was ever to happen, no one's going to know.
Yeah.
So I stood by her side. He ended up passing away from drug overdose. But I chose to stay by her side, as hard as that was for her. And so as a family member, you're like, what's the best thing to do in this situation? Where do I go? Do I do this? Do I not? Do you enable the person because it's
Right.
your son or daughter or your parent? You know, so I want to help people through these situations. I've been there. I've never been in addiction myself. However, I know what it's like to be a family member, and I know what it's like to witness an addict.
Yeah,
So,
I think that you hit on something that's so difficult that so many people deal with. And I know for myself, I've been, in the family situation, been in family court with my oldest son that I had, at 19 years old, I had this child with this woman that I did not want to spend the rest of my life with. And so you're in that daily position of, this is emotionally draining.
mhm,
It's challenging. It's not making me necessarily a better person by being involved in this situation. What do I do? Do I walk away? Do I continue to pour my heart and soul into this situation to make it to be supportive, to hope and wish for an amazing outcome that may or may not come. It's such a draining thing. I think that it's always a case by case thing. I don't know what your take on that is, but I know that in dealing with family, that's it's what family does. We support each other, but there's lines, right, that people cross, and it's hard to say what that line is. For you, if you were giving advice to somebody that was in that situation, that was trying to support a loved one that's in an abusive relationship, for example, have you figured out some kind of ground rules that you kind of created for yourself maybe and that you've kind of given to some other folks?
yeah, so through my experience in working with the family member and helping them work through this, so my goal is to help them understand what addiction really is and to help them understand who the addict is and what that addict is doing and experiencing in the moment. So, like I said before, how I would just see this person outside of their addiction, I would hold them on that pedestal. Help them to understand that the person in the addiction is not the person. So, as I'm working with the family member, helping them understand the addiction, understand the addict, and then I'm having them work on them because that's where the important part comes in. You're
I
the
want to highlight something important that you're saying, I'm listening to How to Win Friends and Influence People
mhm,
for the second time around. And I love what you're talking about there, because are you going to make progress with the family member? And I've definitely done this the wrong way in terms of highlighting the negative versus talking about the positive aspects. Because are you going to convince somebody that is being physically abused by somebody and continues to stay in that relationship? Are you going to convince them that they're doing the wrong thing? It's one of those things where if you sort of look back at it, like, of course you're not, right? they're
yeah,
they're they're going through something and they have their reasons, and if you come in with the negative outlook, you're just going to reinforce the rebel voice, or I don't know what that voice is inside of somebody. But when you tell somebody that they're doing the wrong thing, after they've kind of committed to doing whatever they're doing because of love or whatever
yeah,
reasons that they've consent, you're not making the situation better. You're not going to convince somebody necessarily that's in that situation that you're right and they're wrong. They probably already know some of that and have their reasons. So what you're talking about is highlighting some different things, which I think I really appreciate, right? You're saying this person's normally a good person, and that there's something else going on here, and you're putting them on a pedestal for the things that are good in their life, which is a whole nother tact, right?
yeah. Yeah, exactly. So helping them understand that this addict, this person in their life that they love and they want to help and they think they're doing the right thing by helping them, when you help them understand that we can't help them until they want to help themselves.
Mm.
And you help them understand that really what's going on inside of them is hurt, uh, trauma, possibly. There's a lot going inside internally, emotionally, inside an addict, which is why they're turning to this outlet. They they don't want to remember something. They don't want to think about something. They don't want to feel something. They don't want to hear thoughts in their heads anymore. Whatever the reason is, it's different for everybody. They're using this outlet to numb themselves, so to make that go away. And
So
when
you
you
have this whole psychology thing that puts them into a spiral. So you got folks that are addicted to so many different things. Could be drugs, could be narcotics, right? But could it also be damaging kind of relationship things, especially when you talk about chemical dependency. You got this emotional, the psychological thing that leads them from a psychological addiction, which is bad enough, to a chemical addiction, which is then you're on a whole nother sphere and start going down a whole nother spiral of just not good stuff that's going to lead to, like in the situation of your brother-in-law, it sounds like it led to some really negative life outcomes.
yeah, yeah. So then going back to the family member, helping them understand all that, but then helping them work through what's going on inside of them.
Mm.
They're feeling guilty. They're feeling frustrated and angry, like, go get help already. They're feeling fearful. Like, I hope you don't take it too far and harm yourself or somebody else. So when you start to work with them in working on themselves, things will start to shift in that way too.
I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot because I think you're trying to hang out for your sister, right? Because you love her and she's a family member, and that family member is trying to hang on to their loved one, and so they're trying to be there. And if they feel like they're alone in that, and then it's going to be them against the world because they're the only one that understands, they're the only one that cares, and
Mm-hmm.
they're trying to do something for that loved one that they have with them that may also be the parent to their children, right? So there's all these different reasons for them to stay emotionally involved. I think there's a great segue into just negative thinking and all the negative self beliefs, because it leads us down a lot of these roads. Demi Gray is chiming in here. Yes, unfortunately, negative thoughts occur regularly. However, the issue arises when actions are taken to follow through with those negative thoughts, right? And so that's exactly what we're talking about, right? Is some of the negative thinking can lead to negative action. You were letting people that were telling you had a learning disability let that lead into action instead of finding ways to make things work. You're like, all right, throw up the hands. I got a learning disability. That's what it is, right? And so talk to us a little bit about, we got some great talking points today, and I was telling you before we got on, I personally identified with some of this stuff, right? But choice is a powerful thing, and suffering is always optional, right? So talk to us a little bit about that. When we're sort of getting some of these outside inputs, what's the power of choice here?
Yeah, so that quote comes from one of my mentors. She says this all the time: choice is a powerful thing, suffering is always optional. That means that you have a choice in anything that comes your way to take action, or you have the choice to stay stuck or stay here, stay present in the moment. So when it comes to those negative thoughts, it's all about becoming aware. So between the ages of 0 to 7, it's our imprint years. We're learning from our parents, our older siblings, possibly grandparents, teachers, church leaders, whoever's in our life in that time period that we look up to. And it's different for all of us because we all look up to somebody different. And we're learning from them. We're watching them. We're analyzing everything that they're doing. We're like a sponge. We're absorbing everything. And that's where we learn our beliefs, our habits, our attitudes, what's right, what's wrong. You do this, you don't do this, all that stuff. And then once you hit 8, you go out and model that. You go and do what you learned. So now you've learned all of this stuff and you're going through and doing it, and you've created this story that you tell yourself on a daily basis based on the things you learned. So I'm told by a doctor I have this learning disability. I take that label, I accept it. Oh, well, doctors know what they're talking about, so that must be true. And as a 5-year-old, why would you think any different? So you take on these beliefs like, oh, I can't do this, I can't have this, I'm not smart enough, I'm this, I'm that, I'm not this. All of these things come into play. Fast forward to your adult life, those beliefs and those habits, attitude, learnings are all still there. So how do you become aware that they're there? You start listening to the thoughts that you're having in your mind on a daily basis. How do you do that? In the beginning, it takes effort. It takes action. You're training your mind to think differently. You're training yourself to listen to the thoughts that you're having and not just letting it go on autoplay. So what you could do in the beginning is use a timer. Set a timer for every hour. And when that timer goes off, you could do it for a shorter period. You could do it for a longer period. It's the more you do it, the better. So when that timer goes off, take 2 minutes, jot down, what am I thinking in this moment?
Mm.
What are those thoughts making me feel in this moment? And is this thought positive or negative? That's it. And the goal is just to start seeing a trend of what's happening, what thoughts you're having throughout your day.
And I love this because, this can make you more productive as well, right? Because you could use the Pomodoro technique, right? You're working in 25-minute segments, and then at the end of that 25-minute segment, maybe you reward yourself with a treat. Maybe that's a walk around the block, but maybe you do a little bit of journaling and you're talking about what you're feeling over the last 25 minutes of doing that work. And that's stuff that a lot of us, we just don't take the time to do. We don't get close with our own thought and our own internal dialogue. I love that. I think that's something that we can add and make ourselves more productive and get a little bit more close to our thoughts. And, to this point in this theme, right? By understanding how we're thinking, right, we can choose to feel a little bit better about things, be a little bit more optimistic, and not suffer if we notice that we are pushing ourselves to suffer through something.
Yeah. So it takes just a minute or two for you to do this. So it's very quick and it doesn't take much time away from your other activities or tasks that you're completing. So now that you have done this over a certain period of time, you see this trend. Are my thoughts mostly negative? Are they mostly positive? Is it a certain time of day? Is it after a certain action or task that I've taken that I'm feeling a certain way? And now that you're having a log, you can look at what you are thinking about on a regular basis. You can start to shift that. How do you do that? Every negative has to have a positive. And most people are going through their day thinking about the negative thoughts or the things that they don't want. So if every negative has to have a positive, what is the positive of that negative that you wrote down on your paper? And start thinking about it. And so you're writing your negative thought down. Now you're thinking, okay, well, what's the positive of that? So now you're training your brain to think positive.
So give us a couple examples, because I think people will be like, well, what's, if I think I'm sucking, what's the positive of that, right? If I feel like I'm not performing well on something, or I'm not great at doing something, what's the positive of that?
Okay, I'm a failure. When I fail, I learn what doesn't work.
Love it.
I'm not good at this. I'm learning. I'm too old for that.
Mm.
I continue to grow and learn. So there's a flip side to anything, and it's all about your perspective. So it's going to be different for you what you're positive, but there's always a positive. So
I think that language is so important, and you may have helped somebody just sort of see, right? There, we can think about these things differently. This is challenging for me. I'm getting better at this, right?
yes,
I love that change in language, right? You know, we know from so many people saying it and hearing it, maybe from our parents saying it, from well-meaning colleagues. If we say we can't do it, we're right. If we say we can do it, we're right. Language is so powerful, and so monitoring that internal dialogue and shifting that dialogue so incredibly important, and especially in our communication with others, right? And we're going to get into that in a moment. But talk to us, if you notice that you're suffering, if you notice that you're stressed, right? What are some of the things that we should be doing if we're noticing some of these things happening, right? We're saying, man, I'm stressing, I'm worrying, I'm not feeling good. What would you suggest somebody kind of immediately start to do?
focusing on what it is that you want. That's so important because as we're going through our day, through our life, we're focusing on what we don't want. And that's causing the stress, the anxiety. That it's stemming from that because what you're doing is creating a negative ending to a story that hasn't ended yet. So I'll use a simple example. So you're doing a presentation, you're about to go live on stage, and oh my gosh, you're starting to feel anxious. Am I going to mess up? Am I going to trip up the stairs when I'm going up? That you're creating this story in your mind of all of these things that might happen while you're up there. And so that's making you more anxious, more anxious. If you stop in that moment and think, this is going to be amazing, I'm going to remember everything, I'm going to just go with the flow and continue my speech. Um, I'm going to be graceful. Whatever it is that if you stop and start thinking what could happen instead of what can happen, that anxiety will start to go down. So in anything, it's really important to focus on what it is that you want in every situation, and things will lessen. The stress, the anxiety will start to go away.
Yeah, I love how this plays out. I was talking to you about, I go through this with interviews, right? So, obviously I deal with it in my own stressful situations for me personally, but one of the ways that I filter out negative behaviors from staff and even, may make a decision for a potential employee not to work with my staffing company. When I'm going through that interview process, I ask them what they want from their colleagues, from managers that are working for them. And an immediate danger sign for me is when they start talking as immediately as I've said. I'm asking them, what do they want? What do they desire from the people that they're working with? And instead of telling me what they want, even though I've clearly just asked them what they want, they start telling me what they don't want. And so that immediately tells me something about this person's personality. It says to me that they're focused on the negative.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I'm noticing that as an employer, I think that everybody sees that in interactions, particularly, right?
Mm-hmm.
How does somebody identify that within themselves? Because that can be an incredibly, I think, I know for myself as an employer and just having that conversation with people, and I try to go at it delicately, but I try to, make sure that people understand that they're doing that. Hey, I just want to point out, I asked you what you wanted and you did not tell me what you wanted. You told me what you didn't want. Can we try this again? And so subtly calling attention to the fact that they have gone in a negative direction. Mm-hmm. How can people sort of spot this in themselves? If they, obviously not everybody's in an interview with me where I'm asking that question and they're seeing that, but how can people sort of see that in themselves?
Yeah. So that's very common to happen. We have around 90,000 thoughts come in our mind every single day through our through our senses. So there's sunlight coming in from my window right now. My feet are on the chair. I can hear the humming of my computer. My air conditioning's on. My heart's pumping. My eyes are blinking. So all these sensory things are coming at me. And so throughout the day, 90,000 thoughts are coming in our mind every day. 80,000 of those thoughts are negative thoughts or about things we don't want to happen. So how do you realize that within yourself? You start becoming aware. It's all about that awareness and paying attention to the thoughts that you're having. When someone asks you, what do you want? You will list all the things you don't want. And it's hard for people to tell you what they do want because it's not it's not a habit to focus on that positive, the things that they do want. So if you are wanting to identify that within yourself, become aware of the thoughts you're having on a daily basis, on a regular basis. Use the little task that I mentioned earlier about setting that timer however often throughout your day and writing down what thoughts am I having right now. And you'll see the negative thoughts that you're having, and you can change those to the positive. And then over time, once you're doing that, you're creating a new habit. And then your brain, you can start doing it without writing it down. A thought will come in your mind. Oh, that was negative. Okay, what's the positive? And immediately change it. Because you've been telling yourself the story for however long, and you're attached to that story. So by identifying it and writing it down, you're starting to see that, oh, the story could be changed. There's different avenues that you can go in this story. I can rewrite this part of it. So then as you're doing that, the thoughts will just automatically start coming in more positive because now your story is positive.
Yeah, I think so often we hear focus on the positive, and we don't always have the language or the way to do that. And so you can sort of hear that. You know, I deal with business folks, and so, you know, business networking, and we'll get into, well, you know, be specific, you know, target, make sure that you're asking for what you want. And I think a lot of people will immediately sort of say, well, if I ask for this, people are going to be confused. And so the thought to have is not that people are going to get confused. How can I communicate better? How can I be more clear in asking for what I want? You know, you don't want to focus on that negative aspect of saying, well, these are all the things that I don't want, because that immediately sends people's brains to where you don't want. Perfect example of that interview situation. I was in an interview, and, you know, my last name, Toth, it can be easily confused with the word tooth. And I remember, you know, somebody would say, well, how do you pronounce that? And I said something along the lines of, well, don't say tooth. Well, immediately, what do you think came out of the person's mouth? Because that's where our brains go, right? So focusing on that positive, even though you think it might be funny in certain situations, especially business situations, let's not bring up those negative avenues, because we'll send people there, send people where you want to go, communicate the positive. It's going to get you a lot further with your goals than at all focusing on the negative. And sometimes even, you know, talking about things like, you know, the language that we use as we're coming into the meetings. You may have been late. Do you spend a lot of time apologizing for being late? Like, all these different language pieces play so much into it, because it's the communication that we're putting out. And we may have positive thoughts, but maybe the communication of what we intend is not great. So learning to not only think about what we're thinking about, but what we're actually saying. And by videoing yourself, it's a great way, because then you can go back and look at the video and say, oh, look, what did I actually say? And I know I get a lot of insight. I try not to watch myself too much, but when I see it, okay, I didn't communicate that exactly the way I wanted. And the only way that you get better is through the trial, the practice, seeing yourself, really hearing the language that you're using, because it can be difficult to self-monitor, right? I think that's a big point. We have this other takeaway. The number one person we lie to most is ourselves. Talk to us about that point.
Yeah. So we've created this story and we're playing it on a daily basis. And we convince ourselves of whatever the story is. So we created this lie or whatever it is, and we've convinced ourselves when it comes to addiction. Oh, we love them. We create this fairy tale in our mind around whatever it is so that it's more comfortable for us. So these things come in our mind and we create this story and then we believe that story. And so we just live our lives believing this story.
So talk to me, because I think we're getting into like cognitive dissonance, right? We have this belief, right, of ourselves, and then there's this person that we are, what we do, and those aren't always the same person, right? So
Yeah.
how do we get to the root of the person that we want to be versus the person we think we are?
Personal development, really understanding yourself, how you are communicating with yourself, listening to those thoughts, how you're communicating with others, you're communicating with them, you're not getting the results you want, changing your questions, being more specific to get the answers you do want, and becoming aware. So whatever that personal growth or personal development journey looks like for you, do that. Watch videos, listen to podcasts, read books, take trainings, take workshops or coaching or, all of these development things that are out there for you, and utilize those to help you start understanding yourself.
I love that. And I think that taking advantage of it, for somebody to seek out that help, they first got to understand that they do have some issues and some challenges that they need to work through. For anybody watching this today, what would be a sign for you? Where would you say, especially I know you offer these services, breakthrough sessions to help deal with some of the mental clutter, the negative self-beliefs. What for you is like a red line for you where you're like, yeah, this person really needs to do some work?
Well, I say every struggle is different. We all have a struggle. It just looks different for all of us. So I can identify it within people quicker because I have the tools and I know what to look for. However, I can't just walk up to you and say, hey, Cameron, I think you need help. You can't approach people that way. They have to realize it and identify it within themselves that, hey, I'm struggling in this specific area. And the next step, which is hard for a lot of people, is asking for help or seeking out that help. So once you get to that point where you've realized you want to go on your personal growth journey and you are now seeking out different ways to receive that help, then you can start working with the person and start helping them pinpoint the root of where that struggle is coming from.
Love that. So for folks that are watching this, I just really encourage you, make sure you get some time. You can find Rachel on LinkedIn. Definitely reach out. I want to talk to us about the successful woman's mindset. I'm going to throw the visual on the screen here. But how did you get involved in this book, this project, and why should somebody check it out?
Yeah, it's called The Successful Woman's Mindset. It's 21 Women 21 Stories of Success. And I got involved in it because several reasons. I wanted to join forces with 20 other women. I wanted to see if it was possible for me to write a chapter that I had struggled with my life, 27 years, we'll go with that. 27 years struggled with writing because of this belief that I had. So the chapter is called Journey to Your Value Within, and it's all about limiting beliefs. I share my journey and I pinpoint different experiences that I had, and how that experience created a belief within myself. And I ask questions to get you thinking about your journey and where events and experiences in your life created a belief within yourself that you can identify and then work through to release it so that your possibilities open up for you as well.
I'm going to share here your website too. So tell folks just a little bit. Obviously, they can get in touch with you on LinkedIn. That is actually, if you're watching this on YouTube, which if you aren't watching this on YouTube, do me the favor, go over to YouTube, hit BizDev, type in BizDev Live or Cameron Toth, videos will pop up, hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, whatever channel you're on today, make sure you're hitting that like button. We appreciate you. I want to share your website. How would you ask or how would you like folks to get in touch with you, Rachel? And just tell folks briefly again what services you offer so that they can get in touch with you and follow up on those services.
Yeah. Go to my website, empoweringgrowthcoach.com. You'll find all my social media links there. You can find my email and phone number if you want to reach out. I'd love to have a chat with you. I'm launching a group coaching program starting July 11th, so you can find information on that. If you are ready for a mind shift and to learn all about yourself, give me a call. I'd love to chat with you more about it. You can find my other services. We mentioned breakthrough sessions, one-on-one coaching, and other sorts of that. So if you are looking for personal development and you are ready to take action, call me and we'll have a chat.
Love it. All right. So make sure you reach out to Rachel. Rachel, thank you so much for doing this with me today. I think, one of those things that every single person, I don't care if you're an entrepreneur, business owner, working for somebody else, unemployed, whatever, we all go through these challenges of negative self-thought, challenging days where we feel like, and it's interesting, right? You study, folks that are really, really high performers, millionaires, billionaires, they have these thoughts too. So if you feel like, you're in your entrepreneurial business, you're someplace where you feel like you're not, every single person, high, low, left, right, wherever you are, folks go through this stuff. And the important thing to understand is that there's help. There's people that help guide you. There's lots of resources out there that are low cost. I know that. And then there's lots of people that you can go to that can really help you get through the business challenges and the negative self-beliefs and help you step it up. Business coaches like Rachel, folks that can help you work out some of this clutter and allow you to kind of move beyond it so that the biggest worry in your day is not whether or not you're a failure, but the different things that you need to implement in your business and your life, and not worrying about those negative self-thoughts that get in the way of just living the life that you want to live. Right? Yeah. All right. So Rachel, one more time, just maybe say the name of the website. I know we displayed it, and then maybe a final thought, and we'll say goodbye to our folks here.
All right. The website is empoweringgrowthcoach.com. Again, that's empoweringgrowthcoach.com. And my final thought, I want to just touch on what Cameron was saying. And you can also surround yourself with positive people. Surround yourself with people who are where you want to be, where you want to go. So when you get in those moments of time that we all go through, where you're having doubt or you're having a struggle, whatever that is, you have those people around you to help you pull you out of it quicker.
Rachel, that is awesome advice. I think one of the things that inspiring over the last year and a half is just the permission to ask for that. So let me give you all, folks, if you're watching this, permission. Reach out to Rachel, reach out to myself, reach out to those people that you would love to include in your network and have those positive influences, people that speak positively, they're about positive things, and that are doing things because we are who we surround ourselves with. I love that, Rachel. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm going to let you say goodbye and have the last word, and I'll play us off with our BizDev theme.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
BizDev Live, BizDev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time, live. BizDev Live, BizDev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration, BizDev Live, BizDev Live, business development, not even selling it. BizD with C, brought to you by Cameron T, BizD with C, brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is business development, not even selling it. BizDev Live, BizDev Live.